All right, well, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. The class must go on, addressing technological and digital literacy needs during the pandemic. Today's webinar is generously sponsored by Essential Education, and today we have Dan Griffith with us, who's going to share a few words. Dan.
Thanks, James. Thanks so much to COAIB for the opportunity to do this. We're real excited to sponsor anything about digital literacy and work in the classroom, and appreciate Mark's work to put this webinar together. Just a couple things from Essential Education. You know, our focus is really in the field of distance learning so much. That's really where we got started, and the types of programs that we're developing are designed to help people move through that experience as efficiently as possible. So with that in mind, we really focus on three things: being adaptive, so that the program creates an individualized learning plan for each student. That's super important. One of the things technology can do really well is to identify gaps in learning and then figure a way to fill those gaps in the most logical, sequential way possible. And so our program does that at a very granular level. We can see exactly what skills a student needs, and then make sure that they're ordered in a way that will make sense to the student. The second thing is to make sure that it's accessible. Everyone deserves access to good content. And so our programs are designed to be 508 compliant. We put together a very thorough VPAT to show exactly how we meet those accessibility standards. And I would encourage you to look at your programs very carefully in this way to make sure that you're not, exposing yourself to potential lawsuits or anything like that. If you'd like to see more information about how our programs are accessible, you can email me, dan@essentialed.com, and be glad to get you that VPAT. And then the third thing is to be mobile ready. All of our students, many of our students, most of our students have some sort of mobile device, and to be able to meet them wherever they are at any moment and help them move forward is really important. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that our programs work 24/7 from any device with an internet connection. Of course, we also have offline versions for those in corrections. We do have a full digital literacy course, Computer Essentials. It's designed to build computer and internet skills. It starts really with how to move a mouse. So it starts at a very basic level for someone who maybe hasn't had much exposure to actual desktops and laptops, and builds through 3 units, one on computing fundamentals, living online, and key applications and information. It's aligned to the IC3 credential, and a very robust program. So if you're interested in a demo seat or some more information about that program, it also provides certificates for students. We have several statewide users that use it as part of their HSC programs to provide students with those digital skills they need to enter into the workforce as well. And then I'm really excited to give you just a sneak announcement. Early 2022, we will be launching a new free resource for educators called Implementing Distance Education Adult Ed Programs. And it's an interactive learning guide. And so what we are putting together is a way for you to really deepen and enrich in your study of distance education and have a resource that guides you through that and has a place for you to take notes and think about your programs and yourself and your style and your students and all those things that are necessary to put together a great distance education program and capture it somewhere where you can actually build on it and use it. I know in my own life, anything I really want to learn, one of the struggles is how do I capture that learning so it really sinks in deeply for me? And that's what this guide is designed to do. And so that'll be launching in early 2022 as part of our year of innovation. We're going to promote in 2022 with Essential Education. So keep an eye out for that and the announcements we'll have around that. So that's all I have to say. We wish everyone a great and happy holidays. We know that you guys are working hard out there to address the needs of adult students. It's an honor to stand by your side and partner in those efforts, and we thank you so much for all that you do. James?
Dan, thank you so much for your sponsorship and your partnership and friendship and everything you do for adult education and COAB. We're grateful. Our members are better off. We wouldn't be able to offer these webinars if it wasn't for your sponsorship. So thank you very much. We wish you a happy holidays as well. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, James.
All right, so our presenter today is Mark Rivera with Byte Back. Mark joined Byte Back as education manager in the summer of 2018. Originally from San Antonio, Mark came to DC over a decade ago and earned his master's in English from Georgetown University, building on his bachelor's in English from the University of Texas at Austin. Mark taught English in Morocco with the Peace Corps and has been involved in higher education his whole career. He has held positions at the University of the District of Columbia, the University of Maryland, and the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. Mark recently earned a second master's in higher education from the University of Maryland, which has helped him enhance Byte Back's curriculum, development, and program evaluation. When he's not working, Mark enjoys spending quality time with his family, as well as rock climbing and camping. So please say hello in the chat box. Let us know where you're calling in from today. You can submit any questions that you have about Mark's presentation in the Q&A section. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. Thank you very much.
James, thank you so much. I really appreciate that intro. Really appreciate Dan's time as well. It's great hearing about his programming. And I'm actually going to give it a look over sometime because, digital literacy, is something that we do here at my organization, Byte Back, and have done for some time. So I'm curious to see what others are doing and how we can enhance our own curriculum. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to be here with you. I believe some of you may have been with us before. I actually presented this presentation back in last year, or earlier this year, rather, at the latest COAB conference, and it was well attended, but I'm glad to be doing it one more time for those of you who might have missed it. Just to give me one moment to share my screen. Just to give you some background, and of course, I'm having trouble with there we go. Now I got it. Hey, there we go. I was joined in my original presentation with Priyanka Sharma, a wonderful and talented educator with Your World Education. So I'm going to not only doing my slides for this presentation, but also her slides for this presentation. I just wanted to give her some credit because a lot of the Digital Navigator material that you will be seeing was actually created by her, brainstormed by her, as well as many of her colleagues. So I just wanted to make sure that she was recognized as well. One other thing I want to acknowledge is that I am technically still the education manager for Byte Back. I'm also now our newly appointed director of Latinx Affairs. For those of you who are on this call, I saw someone from Houston. The Latinx community is one that's growing quickly in multiple parts of the country. And we here at Byte Back recognize that and want to make sure that we are catering to their unique needs. And so that's why this role was created. So I just wanted to point out that new role of mine that I'm also occupying. And as with many of us in the world of nonprofits, we wear many hats, don't we? So I think you all understand that my life has been a little more exciting since I got that new role assigned to me. For our agenda today, we're going to be going over a variety of topics, but all related to digital inclusion, the digital divide, and more specifically, how that has translated into our, where we are right now with the pandemic. I think it's relevant to say that we here at Byte Back have been challenged by it, but we've also found many creative ways to respond to it, as have other organizations, and we just want to share a couple of those with you. If you have questions, of course, as James pointed out, please feel free to share in the chat, and I will do my best to get to them towards the end. So I'm going to be rushing through a lot of slides, but I really want to make sure that we have a chance for a conversation at the end of this presentation. Who we are. Byte Back, we've been in DC for 25 years. We've been in Baltimore for the past 3 years now, and we are actually in the process of expanding to some new sites. I can't say where those sites are, but I'm really, really excited about where we're going, how we're growing, and the fact that we are looking to work with and partner with so many new persons to help address the digital divide. Our organization not only caters to students, I should say scholars, adult learners with no to low computer skills, we also provide higher level certification trainings like CompTIA, ITF, and A+ certifications, as well as Microsoft Office specialist certifications. Our demographics are a little bit all over the place, but we do primarily serve 95% people of color. The majority of our students are women, and many of them have reported a disability. So clearly we have a couple of challenges and a couple of scholars with challenges that we serve and have learned to serve over the past 25 years successfully. And that's no different in the pandemic, right? As will become very apparent shortly with some of the figures I'm going to share, these communities tend to face greater challenges towards actually accessing the internet and accessing the many resources that can be found online. World Education, they are a like organization, or I should say a partner organization. They have a much broader focus, but they definitely work with organizations like ours, as well as many others, specifically to make sure that adult learners are getting the most out of their educational experience. But one question I want to ask you, because as was pointed out in the bio, I have taught before. I love teaching and I love asking questions. So there will be a pop quiz. No, there won't be a pop quiz. But I want you to consider, what are some of the pain points that you experienced due to the pandemic in regards to your organization? What are some of the challenges that maybe were already there that the pandemic exacerbated? What are some of those new challenges that popped up? And the reason I want you to consider this is because, for me at least, and for my colleagues, right, for us to brainstorm and to figure out solutions, in regards to how we're going to connect to one another, whether it be Slack or Zoom or what have you, the fact of the matter is that we were all proficient, right? Technologically speaking, we had a basis for how to make the transition. Many of us had already been, using online communications to begin with. We had access, right? We had the machines, we had laptops that we could take home. We had these many different things that a lot of the persons that we were serving didn't have access to, and we had to figure out how to make sure that they were able to access, right? And that's really what it's all about. It's all about access. It's about education. It's about the technology, because without it, you really can't participate in the world fully today, right? A lot of things that do happen whether it be checking your kids' grades, at school, whether it be online banking or, meeting with a doctor. A lot of it relies on the internet. A lot of it relies on having a computer. And, many of us do have cell phones. Many of our students have smartphones. But even so, to really fully access these resources, to really take advantage, it requires a certain degree of digital literacy as well as equipment to do so. What's needed for digital inclusion specifically, though, and I just wanted to throw this out there. When I say digital inclusion, or when I say refer to the digital divide, I'm talking about specifically about three things. Access, right? It needs to be reliable and affordable connectivity. That's number one. Devices. You need to have that technology to connect to the internet, but not just the technology that can connect you, but the technology that can support it. I can't tell you how many students that we've encountered, how many scholars we've encountered at Byte Back who say, "Oh yeah, I can connect," but maybe they didn't realize that they need more than a cell phone, or if they have a computer, that computer may not be able to really support them fully when they're on a Zoom call for X amount of hours in a classroom, right? So we need to make sure that it's not just access or devices, but it's the proper kind of devices, updated devices, newer devices, right? And finally, the skills training, how to use the devices, how to connect, how to really maximize their time online. That's what I'm talking about when I refer to digital inclusion and the digital divide. These are a couple of key figures I just wanted to support why there's a need to address the digital divide. 32 million adults lack basic digital literacy, right? That is a huge number of men and women who are having trouble, connecting and really taking full advantage of being online. And not only that, half of the Americans aren't comfortable using technology to learn. So 32 million lacking basic digital literacy, and half of us don't feel good about using the internet, right? Not to get personal, but I can even think about examples of my own parents, right? Very, very intelligent, very sweet. But when it comes to getting online, they might have access, but they get intimidated, and we need to address that, right? As far as another figure, a quarter of those who can't use a computer are age 16 to 34. So it's not just an older demographic problem. It's not just folks who didn't grow up as digital natives, right? This is a problem that extends into newer generations as well. And so it needs to be more done to address that need. Regarding COVID-19, just to give some background, and I think a lot of you would agree with this based on personal experiences, it's more important now than ever to connect online, right? For safety, for security, for efficiency, you need to be able to connect online successfully in order to access these new devices and these new resources that are out there, right? For your own benefits. And really, it's exacerbated the chasm that is the digital divide, the pandemic. It's definitely made sure that the haves and have-nots have become clearer, but also that gap has become wider. And so that's something else that we are going to talk about, of how we try to do our best to address that for our own scholars, as well as how World Ed has worked hard to address that through its Digital Navigator model. One thing to also note is that the digital divide is to a certain degree a racial divide, right? That in many ways, people of color are left behind at a higher rate when it comes to connectivity due to the pandemic, right? Black workers comprising 12%, but represent 15% of the subset of workers who have no digital skills, right? Latino workers, those numbers are even higher. The fact is that the digital divide is something that impacts people of color at a much higher rate, and that, for those reasons, we do need to be more targeted, more focused on helping to address that racial disparity. And one way we can do that to transition into the Digital Navigator, Digital Navigator model is it's a model that was co-created by a lot of different persons over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years, right? NDIA had a hand in it, Digital US, World Ed, a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different nonprofits have had a say in the creation of the Digital Navigator model. But at the end of it, the Digital Navigator model was created to address those 3 issues I mentioned at the very beginning, right? The access to technology, having technology, connectivity, and having proper training, right? That's what the Digital Navigator model was generated to create. And the way it's done, for the most part, is digital navigators, as they are called, are embedded into certain areas, right? It can be a nonprofit, it can be a public library, it can be another organization, it could be a school, but it's either a person or persons who are embedded into a vital community organization, and they help address those needs. They are, so to speak, a guru in regards to where do you get access? How do you connect to the internet? How can I get an affordable machine, right, to connect myself? How can I get the training to take advantage of that machine? Any and all those different categories, they are capable of addressing and speaking to. And that's something that's really important. There's a map I'm going to show. Oh, here it is. Now, this is a dated map. There were some pilots, Digital Navigator pilots, that were taking place in the country, ours included at Byte Back. We had a unique model that incorporated our scholars to help address local community needs, right? But the reality is that this is just a small cross section. This is a small example of the Digital Navigator network now. I know of, that this list has, I would say, doubled, if not tripled, over the past several months of different communities who have found funding for digital navigators and have launched those positions, right? Texas also, I know for a fact that I believe in San Antonio has a digital navigator there. So really, digital navigators, although it's very new, it's spreading like wildfire in the best possible way, and rightfully so, because this is a problem, as those numbers indicated, is not just a localized problem, it is a nationwide problem. And that's why it's so important that digital navigators continue to spread, continue to proliferate. In regards to the resources that digital navigators provide, as I mentioned earlier, right, computer fundamentals, right, maybe not necessarily giving the training, although in some cases they can, but really finding the training that is necessary excuse me, a little preview there. Also, online basics, being safe online, these are some key factors that digital navigators are, educated and can speak to. Identifying community resources. This is something that may not always fall under the purview, right? That when we think about resources, when we think about the digital divide, we don't necessarily think about why is it so important to connect, right? But the fact is that a lot of the persons who are connecting or who need to connect are connecting specifically because they need to access resources, going to certain, government offices, not in person, but online, making sure that they can complete forms to get the proper help that they need. That's another aspect of the digital navigator model, right? That's coming into play, including, speaking of resources, finding in jobs, applying for jobs, right? These are critical skills that digital navigators, this, whole purview, or falls under their purview rather. So when I talk about digital navigators, as similar to when I talked about digital divide, this is what I envision. This is what I'm speaking to, right? And there is a digital navigator toolkit that World Ed did produce, and it's available online. It's easily to find through Google. As far as the second question, once again, don't worry, no quiz. I want you to consider, what are some of the best strategies you've heard or you've led for bridging the digital divide? And were you able to execute them? Why or why not? Because there's definitely a variety of ways to tackle the digital divide. No two organizations, as I've learned, are alike. No two nonprofits will face the same set of challenges, but a lot of it has overlap, right? I feel like a lot of us have seen a lot of the same things, and I wanted to at least touch upon that. At Byte Back, just to give you some context, we, up until the pandemic, hosted classes exclusively online. We did a little bit of online tutoring from time to time. We did, sometimes we would Skype in, literally Skype in a guest speaker to our classrooms. But 99% of the classroom experience was in person. When COVID hit, within a week and a half, that entire classroom experience was digital. And just to give you some perspective on, I don't want to say our naivety, but I would say on our hopefulness, I did a training for instructors shortly thereafter, not just on online training, but also how long we could expect this to happen. I said, don't worry, we're only planning on this to happen, be taking place for 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 months was highly, highly optimistic on my part. But the fact is that over that time, over the next couple of months, as well as since then, we have continued to learn, to refine our online offerings. And I think that we've gotten better and better, and our students are responding to it. So what are these changes that we made as a nonprofit that specializes in adult education? right, that specializes in IT education for adult learners. Well, the first thing we did was ongoing professional development, right? It's not just a matter of making sure that our instructors were trained and they felt comfortable with Zoom, that they felt comfortable with online training. We wanted to make sure that they felt confident in it. And so every 2 to 3 months since the pandemic, we have had ongoing trainings to make sure that, we address their concerns, and whatever new technologies or new opportunities are out there, best practices, best emerging practices, that they are informed and that they are trained on those items. Another thing is that we had ongoing student services, excuse me, surveys from the very beginning. We wanted to make sure that we were communicating consistently with our students, that we knew what they needed, that they wanted, and if we were able to address those concerns. It was so critical that we got student feedback early on, because we can't really do our job properly if we don't know that we're actually working for them. That if they're, we can look at the numbers, we can see the pass rates and completion rates, but we also want to make sure that it's not like pulling teeth for them to complete or pulling teeth for them to pass. We want to make sure that they feel supported every step of the way. And that, so making sure that we had that consistent survey loop was really important to our success. Equipment. We could not have done any of this without equipment. Thankfully, just serendipitously, we had a plethora of laptops in storage at the moment that we had been saving, because we were already in the making plans to launch some digital classes, right? So we were ahead of the curve when the pandemic hit. And so we were immediately able to get those into the hands of our students who needed computer equipment at home, right? Not so much for the internet connectivity, right? We had to help some of the students find, connect with Comcast Essentials, or, so to find, affordable internet, or in some cases for students who couldn't even afford that, make sure that they got some hotspots that they could stay connected. Was it pricey? Yes. Did we have to, talk to funders and apply for grants and, get personal donations to make this happen? Absolutely. I don't think we could have done it without that. And we continue to get equipment donated, right? Because it's an ongoing problem. We don't want to just say, I'm sorry, we don't have a laptop for you. You will have to wait until the next class. That we never want to turn away a student. And so making sure that that we continue to solicit donations is a priority of ours. Revise safety protocols. I don't think any of us, would disagree with making sure that for students who do have to come in, whether it's to be picking up equipment, meeting with an instructor, for the staff that still come in from time to time periodically, we don't want to put anyone at risk. And so we said, okay, what are the best practices? What are the things that we will do to maximize the safety of anyone who comes in, right? And so one of those things is that we did basically go to a skeleton crew. No one is coming for several months. Even now, right, we still to a certain degree have a skeleton crew where we have a front desk person and maybe 2 or 3 persons coming in from time to time in the back. And even then, it's usually alternating schedule. If we had to come in, we see, hey, how many people are here today? Okay, maybe I'll wait till tomorrow, right? For the students, we also make sure that when they have to come in for certification exams, that we're scheduling a limited number, that they're always masked, as are the staff, as are the faculty, whoever's around, getting temperature checks, the whole 9 yards when it comes to safety protocols. They are there in place, because the last thing we want is for anyone to come in and to get sick. That was never anything we wanted to compromise on. As I just mentioned, we do have limited on-site testing opportunities. The fact is that for those certification exams, a lot of our students don't have quiet spaces to test in at home. They don't have comfortable spaces to test in at home. And in some cases, their internet connection isn't reliable enough to test at home. And so we still continue to offer testing on site. We are Pearson VUE certified testing center. And so we wanted to make sure that they could still continue to come with us. And we've done that. Adjusted hands-on learning experiences. So for for those of you who know CompTIA A+ ITF certification, we still run those classes, but hands-on experience, for future help desk technicians is so vital, right? There are certain things that you can do in a simulation that, unless you're actually plugging in the cord, identifying that port, taking apart the piece of hardware that you're working with, it's just not the same thing. And so we realized that was actually came out of the surveys that we did with our students. The A+ students said, listen, this is great. These resources you're providing, these extra resources are really nice, but I want to get my hands dirty. I want to see exactly what happens, how it feels. And so we created these limited timed opportunities for them to come in following all the protocols that we established, and that we adjust it. So, we never have more than a certain set number of students in there. And because of that, we have to alternate them. But that's okay. We do that because we want them, A, to be safe, but at the same time, we want to make sure they have those hands-on experiences. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we have to a certain degree taken on a digital navigator model and created our own digital navigator um, model of our own, right? Which actually has relied on some of our scholars and alumni to answer the questions of fellow scholars to troubleshoot issues that they might have and serve as a resource to them, which has been really exciting because in addition to the scholars who get help, we're also getting other scholars' experience, right? Real world experience of troubleshooting problems. So it's been really a great experience for everyone involved. As far as students who we've served, Tolia, I originally had a video, but I knew that I wanted to save time for the end, so I'm not going to play it. But this is one of her quotes, and this is something that we've heard consistently, right? The fact that we continue to work with our students, we continue to find ways to connect them and to get them the equipment to participate in our classes. And it's the thing that keeps us waking up, honestly, and keeps us coming back because the need is there, and we want to be there to help out with it. This is more background of Byte Back. It's not just a matter of getting training. It's a matter, for us at least, getting our scholars into new careers, right? Ideally new careers, not just jobs, but lifelong IT careers. And so we've been very fortunate that we're successful when it comes to the students getting certifications. One last question. And I know I've thrown a lot of information at you so far, so I'm not going to be hard on you. But what aspects of the Digital Navigator model, of these different services that a Digital Navigator provides, do you believe would benefit or could benefit your organization or stakeholders the most? And also, when you think about those possible benefits, what aspects do you think might be that low-hanging fruit that you could implement quickly, efficiently, affordably, right? And I'm just going to go over and share some more pieces from World Ed. The fact is that it's not just a matter of digital inclusion, right? It's not just a matter of pursuing and participating fully online and computers. I just wanted to highlight this, that digital inclusion also refers to career opportunities and lifelong learning. That's something that we do stress with our learners, our adult learners, that technology continues to evolve. They can't simply take one of our classes and expect to be good with technology for the rest of their lives, particularly if they're younger. Even if they're older, technology changes on a day-to-day basis, and we want them to change with it. And so, in many ways, having digital skills isn't just having current skills, it's having adaptability, it's having a desire to be a lifelong learner, and it's also having opportunities to practice those skills that you've learned, right? And that's one of the things that digital literacy, digital inclusion refers to. Another thing is this term of digital resilience that I want to speak to, and I think the definition captures it perfectly. So rather than paraphrase, I'm simply going to read it for us. Digital resilience signifies having the awareness, skills, agility, I got cut off, and confidence to be empowered users of new technologies and adapt to changing digital skills demands. Digital resilience improves capacity to problem solve and upskill, navigate digital transformations, and be active participants in society and the economy. And I can't think of any greater example of digital resilience than the transformation that my organization and most likely your organization has seen during the pandemic. We've all, to a certain degree, had to practice digital resilience, shifting to Zoom meetings or Teams, shifting to Slack communications more so than email, relying on these new networks to, new online networks to stay connected and to make sure that we continue to function successfully and serve our stakeholders. So I just want you to soak this in and say, does this resonate with you? And I'm almost certain that it does, right? And this is really key. This is the goal, not just for World Ed, not just for Byte Back, but this should be the goal for all of us who work with adult learners of any age or learners of technology. One one more thing, rather, I should say, that when it comes to digital resilience, there is this ecosystem model that World had created. The fact is that digital resilience isn't just a one person, right, job or a one group job. It really takes everyone involved to facilitate digital resilience. Employers, governments, education and service providers, tech developers, we all need to be aware. We all have a role to play when it comes to creating digital resilience. For me, an organization, we're in the education service providers, but we have very strong communications with employer partners, right? As well as local government officials in regards to what we're seeing, what are their needs, how can we better serve them? And that's the thing about this, right? It's meant to be a two-way street. We don't want to go anywhere and say, here's exactly what you need to be digitally resilient. We want to learn and we want to hear what others are saying and what they need, because that's really the best way to actually make sure that we're providing the proper services at the end of the day. Same thing with employers, government tech developers. We should all be communicating and talking with one another, because at the end of the day, we all, like I said, have a role to play, but we need to also make sure that that role is relevant to those learner workers that we are targeting. Oh, and I just rushed through, but this is my contact information here. And this is Priyanka's contact information. So if you have any questions about the Digital Navigator model, you can send some emails to her. I'm sure she'd be excited to talk about the Digital Navigator model that continues to proliferate, and as well as as far as pandemic responses, or anything really that I discussed on today's presentation. I'm happy to talk about it right now if there's any questions. I'm going to go to the chat room as well. I am happy to put contact info into the chat. Let me go back through. If you have new questions, or maybe you can put them into the chat room now, but I'm going to go through and see if there's any. Bruce, I cannot agree with you more. It definitely does vary. And that's something that needs to be, I think, acknowledged, that needs vary, not just from org to org, but they vary from person to person, right? And that's why communication should be solicited. I mean, we shouldn't, we don't just try to collect quantitative data, we try to collect as much qualitative data from our stakeholders as possible as well. Ah, that's great. So, and let me clarify, thanks, Jacqueline, for that question. Navigators, I would say, are best used as trainers and as problem solvers. They can be used as instructors. I do know, I have heard of models where the navigators are also used and occupy the instructor role, but a lot of the time the navigators are there specifically to facilitate connections, right? To say, oh, you need a computer, this is the org you go to. Oh, you need online service, this is the org you go to. You need training, this is the org you go to. And they can, like I said, do some training. They can provide some resources if that's what their role is. But it really, that's the beautiful thing about the Digital Navigator model. It's adaptable to what the different organizations need. And so if they need an instructor, they can also have an instructor. But I tend to see more digital navigators function as connectors versus instructors. Oh, Ali. I think that's actually a question best for Priyanka Sharma, and I can provide that information in a second. But when it comes to the digital navigator services that are available and who's doing what. But you can definitely look at the toolkit as well online. If you search for the Digital Navigator toolkit, I promise it will pop up even with a simple Google search. How are organizations staffing digital navigators, hiring new people, changing job descriptions? So based on what I've seen, a lot of organizations, particularly a lot of counties, cities, are funding digital navigators through a lot of the money that came out of the pandemic. There's a lot of money that came specifically to addressing issues of digital equity, and so they were able to local organizations, particularly educator organizations in many cases, advocated to get money for a digital navigator in their community. And that's how these positions have been funded. And so I believe there's still money out there, but it depends on, it really depends on if there's, what it was allocated for originally, right? And so, like I said, a lot of dollars were allocated for digital equity, digital inclusion, a lot of pandemic dollars. But even now, I believe with the Build Back Better plan that's going through Congress, hopefully sooner rather than later, there's a lot of money included for digital equity, digital inclusion in there as well. And so ideally in the near future, there'll be even more dollars that different communities and organizations can use to create their own digital navigators. What's the job market for digital navigators? I think that's in the conversations I've been involved with, that it's going to be bigger. I think it's growing. Like I said, that graph, that picture I showed of digital navigator pilots in the country, it's outdated already, right? In just 1 year, it's already outdated. And I think it's going to continue to grow simply because the fact is that multiple communities seem to all be realizing at the same time that the digital divide is something that needs to be addressed, right? Not just for the equity issues, the fact that we want to make sure that everyone has, equal access, equal opportunities to go online and to take advantage of various resources that exist, but also it's a financial issue. I think a lot of communities are realizing, well, if our community members aren't digitally literate, if they can't participate fully in society, well, then we're going to have to pay them more services as well. We're going to have to, do even more down the road. And I think so that a lot of communities are recognizing that and are now pumping money to make sure that that doesn't happen. And one of the ways they're doing that is through digital navigators. So I think that there will be more roles like that in the future down the road. Other questions or thoughts? There have been so many thoughts. I really wanted to go through all the comments. I guess I'll go through the comments another time. It's easy to get lost. There's so much good work. I love comments in these forums because it's remarkable the different ways that so many organizations are tackling the same problems or issues. Any comments about responses to the pandemic? Any challenges that you want to share or any solutions that you found to helping your own community members get connected, whether it be identifying the proper technology, identifying proper education resources, whatever it might be. Because although I'm happy to answer questions, I know that there's a lot more. Oh, there's specific Q&A. I'm sorry about that. I missed this. Why not nationalize broadband access? Ahuva, that's an excellent question. Why not? I think that there's definitely more funding for broadband access, but as you well know, there is a great report recently about the fact that broadband access in many ways is like the new redlining. In many ways, it's limited to the more affluent communities across the country. And so until we advocate for greater digital equity and for greater funding for communities, that are usually neglected, it's not going to happen, right? And that's what not only our organization is doing more recently, but also an organization like NDIA, which is an association of multiple organizations that were all beginning to really advocate to address the digital divide in multiple ways, including providing greater broadband access. Another question, this one came from Nancy. What challenges did you face when bringing all the community partners into the larger digital literacy network of your NPO? That's a fantastic question, Nancy. Our biggest challenge was not the adult learners in our intermediate or our advanced classes. Our biggest challenge was how do we make sure that we continue to provide our digital literacy classes? Because there are students that we get who don't even know how to turn on a computer. So how are you going to ask a student who doesn't know how to turn on a computer to suddenly join a Zoom room and to do a one-on-one lesson or to do even a group lesson? And so what we did, this kind of falls where in this applies to the COVID protocols we put into place, we started having limited trainings for beginner students. We said, okay, we would call them on the phone. You've been accepted into the class. You had to come to this location at this time. You had to follow these precautions, right? X, Y, and Z. And we're going to give you a nuts and bolts training on how to turn on a computer, how to access the internet, how to create an email address. Right now, these are things that we normally do in person, but we said, we're just going to give you everything you need to get online and to get connected to the first class, and then we'll go from there. But in addition to that, we made sure to have somebody online in every class for beginners, at least the very first day, who could help address their technical problems, because it doesn't matter, you know, if you only show someone one time and give them one chance opportunity to get online and to do all those things, they might know it in the classroom, but then the next time they try, they get nervous or they get flustered, they forget what to do. So we wanted to make sure that they still felt supported that first day too. Anonymous attendee. Hello, Anonymous. How did your program address the needs of learners with varying learning needs or identified disabilities? One thing we try to do, and this is more, I would say that's a great question, by the way, is more of an instructor way of addressing the issue versus an institutional wide way, is that it falls to the instructor in many cases, right? They're the boots on the ground who need to interact with the classroom. And so when it comes to identifying and working with various learning needs, ideally, we do the legwork before a class even begins, because we give them an assessment. We see what their learning level is. We talk to them, we interview them, all those different things. Even so, there are times when a student has been misidentified. And if they are misidentified and they're in too low a class, we'll give them, you know, a follow-up assessment to see if they need to advance, test out, that's fine. If they're right on the cusp, but we don't think they should advance, we try to give them, in many cases, the instructor rather, we'll give them higher level material to study or to challenge them, right? So maybe the students are working on, you know, creating a Word document, and the instructor might say, listen, you already got that under your belt. Why don't we try to, you know, work with a Google Doc and see what those differences are, and we can talk about it, right? So it really is a matter of individualizing the learning, catering the learning, and those instructors responding on the fly to those needs that when they identify different levels, learning levels. As far as identifying disabilities, there are a lot of resources, fortunately, in DC, Washington, DC, where a lot of organizations. And so, for instance, we had a deaf student, and so their interpreter was a covered service. And so we zoomed in their interpreter in addition to them to make sure that they were able to fully participate. It's just a matter of, you know, we don't have those resources ourselves sometimes. And so we need to make sure that we work closely with our partner organizations and our, you know, local DC government to get those resources in place. Brenda, I have yet to teach via an online platform, but it may happen. What is the key component I should remember? Oh, Brenda, there's so many key components I can't even begin to count, but research says that the key component to teaching on the online platform, one key component, begins with the platform itself. How comfortable are you with the platform, as well as how comfortable are your participants with the platform? Because if they don't feel comfortable, they're going to immediately get flustered. They're going to feel like this was a waste of time, or they're going to feel like, I knew it, I'm not good at technology, I'm going to go offline, right? So it's really a matter of what works best for you, as well as what works best for your students. So you want to make sure that, you know, from day one, you get them used to it, you give them a walkthrough, and you make sure that they do feel comfortable. So that I would say is the first of many key components, is making sure that your online platform is not just a good one. I think they all have their pros, they all have their cons, but is one that you feel good using, and one that your stakeholders feel good using at the end of the day. There are more questions that have come in. Cindy, how do you reach people to tell them about your services? Well, right now we have a great bus ad campaign going on. This is true. We just started a bus ad campaign, and that's been one way we are reaching. Byte Back being 25 years old, and more recently, you know, several years old in Baltimore, we have great word of mouth. Thankfully, we have great word of mouth with our community, and so that helps us out a lot. A lot of people who come to us as referrals, but we also, you know, have done other Advertising more recently, we've got into, I would say over the past several years, heavily on social media, because like I said earlier, even for community members who don't have computers in the home, nearly everyone has a smartphone. And so you can target them and target people who are looking for your services online, and you know, so through social media, whether it be Facebook or Snapchat or other forms. Jacqueline, is there an age gap sensitivity we should be aware of when serving older client students? Oh, yes, absolutely. And this goes to andragogy or adult education, right? Basically saying that there is a difference between younger learners and older learners. That's not just personal observation. That's not experience talking. That's the research talking, the field of adult education talking. And so a couple of things to remember when it comes to working with older learners is that there's some key assumptions that you can, you know, take for granted. One, they're going to have a stronger sense of self, ideally, right? They're going to know more about who they are. And so that's something that you can take advantage of in a classroom to say, well, let's go to you and see, you know, how you feel about this. And because of that, they're also going to want greater agency in the class. They're going to say, I want to be more of a participant and to kind of lead the material where we're going. So that's something to be aware of. They do have greater experience, right? That's contributing to their greater sense of self. And because of that experience, that's something you can capitalize on and say, so tell me what happened in this situation, or based on your previous life experience, how would you deal with this? Another thing to be aware of when it comes to age differences is, typically speaking, older students are ready. And what I mean by ready is that they come motivated to learn. They're not there because they have to be, but because of that, they also have higher expectations. They want something that's immediately transferable and applicable to their life. And so in that way, those are things you should definitely be sensitive to. There is certainly an age gap. When it comes to, you know, how quick does it take for them to absorb certain ideas? That's another conversation altogether, but I feel like the pieces that I shared with at least are a good start. Maddie, what's the best way to find these digital navigator resources for your states? Oh, that's great, Maddie. Let me go online. Let me see if I can just do a quick Google search and find that digital navigator toolkit, because I know that digital navigators are becoming more localized, which is great, but at the same time, it can't hurt to at least start from the beginning. I believe this is it. Aha, yes. So here we go, digital navigator toolkits, and I'm going to share it in the chat right now. As far as digital navigator resources specific to Virginia, that I don't know. You may be able to reach out to World Ed or to NDIA also, National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They're always welcoming new members and they're a great resource. I'm on their chat, and whenever one person asks a question, you get 10 responses very quickly because everyone wants to help one another. So it's a great community. Any other questions? Wow, that was a lot of great questions. I really appreciate all the questions that were shared. I will say this at least, so please participate in this poll. But once again, if you have any follow-up questions, if there's anything that you think of that I can help you address or help you with, you just maybe want to talk about your own programming, your own challenges, I'm here for you. I'm happy to discuss that offline another time. And I believe everyone has my email address now. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. It was great seeing you from all over the country. And we even have more resources coming. Oh, wait, there seem to be more questions coming in. Oh no, none of the links appear. Yes, the link was copied into the chat. Thanks everyone. Happy holidays. Have a great day. Take care, y'all.
Mark, awesome presentation. Thank you so much. That was great interaction and participation. Really appreciate it. Well done. I want to thank Dan Griffith again and Essential Ed for sponsoring our webinar today. I want to thank everyone who participated with us. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season and a great rest of the week and a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.